Imagine you've just been seriously injured. Every instinct you rely on tells you to avoid the creature responsible for most of the danger in your world. And yet, instead of running from humans, you try to find one. It sounds impossible, but some wild animals appear to do exactly that. If they truly understood what humans could do, they were making one of the most dangerous decisions imaginable. Yet this has happened not once, but many times. In the African savannah, wildlife rescuers witnessed something astonishing. 3 wild elephants, each suffering from painful arrow wounds inflicted by poachers, didn't disappear into the wilderness where they would normally hide. Instead, they left the safety of the bush and walked toward people, toward a human-operated rescue center. Think about that. The same species that harmed them was also the only one capable of helping them. Why? Now consider another moment. A dolphin surfaced beside a group of divers. Then again and again. It stayed close, circling, returning, refusing to leave, until the divers noticed something wrapped tightly around its body. Fishing line, cutting into its skin. Piece by piece, they removed it. Only then did the dolphin disappear beneath the surface. These aren't isolated incidents. They've been reported across different species and environments, and they all point to the same question. Why would an injured animal deliberately seek out the one creature it has every reason to fear? Humans have hunted them, destroyed habitats, driven species toward extinction. Evolution should have taught them to run. Instead, some came closer. Scientists have spent decades trying to understand why, and what they've discovered is far more fascinating than most people realize. Because before we can understand these encounters, we need to meet one extraordinary bird. A bird that has partnered with humans for thousands of years. You might think those animals were simply desperate, but what you're about to see can't be explained by desperation, because in the woodlands of sub-Saharan Africa, there's a creature that doesn't run from humans. It looks for them. It's small, wild, and for thousands of years, it has been searching for people. It's called the greater honeyguide, and its survival depends on a partnership unlike anything else in nature. The honeyguide loves beeswax and larvae hidden inside wild beehives. But there's a problem. It can't break into a hive on its own. Thousands of aggressive bees make sure of that. Humans, however, can. Using smoke and simple tools, people can open hives, but finding them is difficult. So an unusual partnership evolved. When a honeyguide finds a hive, it calls loudly and moves from tree to tree. Instead of feeding, it waits for a human to respond. Then it leads the person through the forest, checking back repeatedly to make sure it's being followed. Eventually, it guides them to the hidden hive. The human collects the honey, and the bird gets the leftovers, wax, larvae, and honeycomb. For years, scientists thought this was just folklore, but studies proved otherwise. The birds ignored random human sounds. Yet when they heard traditional honey hunting calls, they responded immediately. This wasn't coincidence. The birds had learned to recognize a specific human signal, a wild animal communicating with humans for mutual benefit. And that raises a bigger question. If a bird can recognize a human helper, what happens when an injured elephant makes the same calculation? The honeyguide proved something extraordinary. A wild animal wasn't just reacting to humans, it was communicating with them, but that raises a deeper question. Did the elephant understand? Or the dolphin? When an injured animal approaches a human, what's happening inside its mind? Does it truly recognize that humans can help, or is something simpler at work? Scientists don't fully agree. One explanation is learned association. Imagine a seal trapped in a fishing net. Humans arrive and cut it free. Later, it gets trapped again. This time, it approaches a boat. It doesn't need to understand human intentions. It only needs to remember one pattern. Humans appeared and the danger disappeared. No reasoning. Just experience guiding behavior. But this doesn't explain everything. Some animals approach calmly, wait, and even seem to guide humans to the problem. That suggests something more complex. Some researchers believe certain animals may understand that others have different knowledge or perspectives. This ability is called theory of mind. Humans develop it as children. Whether animals possess even a limited version remains uncertain. But one species has provided strong clues. Not elephants, not dolphins. Dogs. Scientists discovered something remarkable. Their experiments changed how we understand animal communication, because the results suggest that some animals aren't just observing us, they may actually understand what we're trying to tell them. For thousands of years, dogs have lived alongside humans, but only recently have scientists asked a surprising question. How much do dogs actually understand about us? Dogs respond to commands, fetch objects, and follow instructions. But that doesn't prove they truly understand human communication. So researchers designed a simple test. 2 identical bowls are placed on the ground. One contains food, the other is empty. The dog has no way of knowing which is which. Then the human points. No words, no movement, just a finger directing attention. The dogs consistently chose the correct bowl. But scientists wanted to know why. Were dogs just following movement, or did they understand the meaning behind the gesture? So they changed the experiment. Sometimes the human pointed without looking at the dog. Sometimes the gesture was accidental. Sometimes it was misleading. The results were clear. Dogs responded most when the human appeared to be intentionally communicating. They weren't just reacting to motion. They were interpreting meaning. To them, a pointing finger meant, look over there. Scientists call this referential communication, a key foundation of human language. Human infants develop it early. Finding it in dogs was groundbreaking. It showed that dogs haven't just adapted to humans. They've become highly skilled at reading our signals, our eyes, gestures, and intentions. And that raises a bigger question. If dogs can understand human communication, could other animals recognize something about us too? Not language, but the idea that humans can help, that we can solve problems. If so, some extraordinary animal encounters may not be accidents. They may be calculated decisions made when survival leaves no better option. And that's what makes the next story so remarkable. Because beneath the ocean, an injured dolphin made a choice. It's one thing to observe animal intelligence inside a laboratory. It's something entirely different to witness it in the wild. Because out there are no controlled experiments, no trained animals, no rewards waiting at the end. Only life or death decisions. One of the most remarkable examples happened off the coast of Hawaii. A group of scuba divers noticed a bottlenose dolphin behaving strangely. It wasn't hunting, it wasn't playing, it circled them repeatedly, closer each time, slower, deliberate. Wild dolphins don't behave like this. At first, the divers did nothing. Interfering can make things worse, but the dolphin kept returning until one diver saw the problem. A fishing hook was lodged in its mouth, a line wrapped tightly around its body. Every movement caused pain. The diver moved carefully, slowly. One sudden motion could scare it away. Piece by piece, they removed the hook, cut the tangled line, and the dolphin stayed. When it was finally free, it didn't immediately leave. It paused beside the diver. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then it disappeared into the ocean. If it had happened once, it might be coincidence. But then came another case. A wild raven appeared outside a rural home, calling loudly again and again. It didn't leave. When someone approached, the reason became clear. Porcupine quills were embedded in its face and wing. Painful, debilitating. Yet the bird stayed still, allowing a stranger to remove each quill. Two different species, two different environments, same outcome. An injured animal approached a human instead of fleeing. As more cases appeared, a pattern emerged. Maybe this isn't coincidence. But the most astonishing cases were still waiting. Imagine an animal powerful enough to crush a car, choosing to approach humans instead. In India, a young elephant calf slipped into a deep, man-made pit. No matter how hard it tried, it couldn't climb out. Its mother rushed to help. She pushed, pulled, reached down with her trunk. Nothing worked. As time passed, her distress grew. Most wild elephants avoid humans at all costs, but this mother did something extraordinary. She walked toward a nearby road where people were passing. Witnesses saw her approach them, then turn back toward the trapped calf, again and again. Her behavior drew attention. Eventually, people understood. They followed her, organized a rescue, and lifted the calf to safety. Thousands of miles away, another encounter unfolded beneath the ocean. A southern right whale became tangled in fishing line wrapped around its mouth instead of fleeing. It approached a nearby boat. It surfaced beside it repeatedly, remaining calm while people removed the debris. Then there was the whale shark, the largest fish on Earth. One injured individual swam toward a fishing boat with rope wrapped around its body. For nearly 20 minutes, it remained almost still. Divers cut away the rope piece by piece. At any moment, it could have swum away. Instead, it waited. These cases are remarkable not just because of what happened, but because of who was involved. Animals with completely different brains, different environments, different evolutionary histories. Yet they showed similar behavior. Approach the human. Which raises a question. Were these animals making a choice, or did they have no better option? Researchers eventually realized these stories all had one thing in common, and it wasn't the species, it wasn't the location. At first, these rescue stories seem almost impossible to believe. An elephant seeks out people. A dolphin swims toward divers. A whale patiently waits beside a boat. It's tempting to assume they all share one extraordinary ability, that somehow they instinctively know humans can help. But scientists think the truth may be simpler, and even more fascinating. When researchers examined many cases, one pattern stood out. Almost every animal made its decision under one condition. It had run out of options. The dolphin couldn't escape the fishing line. The elephant couldn't free its trapped calf. The whale shark couldn't remove the rope. The raven couldn't eat because of painful quills. Every normal survival strategy had failed. Imagine the elephant standing above its trapped calf, hearing its cries below, trying again and again to pull it free, and failing every time. In moments like these, something changes. Evolution doesn't give animals fixed rules, it gives them flexible strategies. Normally, avoiding humans is safest, but survival isn't about rigid behavior. It's about choosing the best chance to stay alive. Imagine being trapped, every escape route gone, the danger growing worse. Suddenly, the creature you've always avoided no longer seems like the greatest threat. Instead, it becomes the only option. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes sense. A small chance of rescue is better than none. Researchers believe this is why injured animals sometimes act out of character. They're not abandoning instinct, they're overriding it. Fear doesn't disappear, it simply becomes less important than survival. And once that happens, approaching a human becomes a calculated risk. But here's the deeper mystery. Not every animal makes that choice. Some species turn to humans in crisis, while others never do. So what makes the difference? What if some animals aren't learning this alone, but across generations? Imagine a young elephant standing at the edge of a clearing. In the distance, humans are approaching. It has never been harmed by them. It has never been helped by them. And yet it hesitates, because the decision it's about to make may not come from its own experience. It may come from something it inherited, a memory that was never truly its own. As strange as it sounds, scientists think this may be exactly what's happening. For some species, survival isn't just individual, it's passed down. Elephants live in families led by matriarchs who remember migration routes, water sources, and dangerous encounters even decades later. Young elephants learn by watching. They learn where to go, what to fear, and who to avoid. Imagine a calf watching veterinarians remove a painful snare from its mother. The herd stays tense, but they don't run. The calf observes everything. Years later, that memory may shape its own decisions. One encounter can influence an entire family. Now imagine the opposite. A herd experiences rescue. An injury is treated. A calf is saved. That memory becomes part of the group's shared experience. Over time, behavior can change. Not because elephants trust humans, but because they recognize a difference. Some humans bring danger. Others bring survival. Scientists call this social learning. It helps explain why some elephant populations react differently to people. Herds exposed only to poachers become highly defensive. Others, familiar with conservation teams, may show less fear in emergencies. This pattern appears in other species too. Dolphins teach hunting. Whales pass down vocal traditions. Birds learn by observing adults. Knowledge spreads, behavior adapts. But there's a challenge. Scientists can't ask animals what they're thinking. They must study behavior instead. Because when an animal can't explain its thoughts, every answer becomes a mystery to solve. As fascinating as these stories are, scientists have to be extremely careful. Because there's one major obstacle: animals can't explain their thoughts. We can observe behavior, record patterns, compare cases, but we can never ask a dolphin why it approached a diver, or an elephant what made it seek out humans. So every explanation must rely on evidence, not imagination. Researchers warn against anthropomorphism. That's our tendency to project human emotions onto animals. If a whale lingers after being freed, was it grateful or simply recovering? If a fox looks back after being helped, was it saying goodbye or checking for danger? The honest answer is simple. We don't know, and good science accepts uncertainty. But that doesn't make these encounters less remarkable. It makes them more intriguing, because despite the unknowns, patterns keep appearing. Different species, different environments, yet similar behavior. Animals in danger sometimes approach humans instead of fleeing. Scientists must ask a harder question. Is this coincidence or something more? Simple explanations exist. Injured animals may seek stability. Exhaustion may reduce fear. Desperation may override instinct. Each explains part of the story, but none explains everything, and that's where one discovery stands out. Unlike eyewitness accounts, this case was tested, repeated, measured, published. It didn't rely on interpretation. It relied on evidence, and it revealed something extraordinary. The answer wasn't found in a laboratory. It was found deep in the forests of Africa, and it all began with one remarkable animal. Throughout this journey, we've explored incredible stories from around the world: an elephant leading people to her trapped calf, a dolphin approaching divers while tangled in fishing line, a whale patiently waiting beside a boat. They're remarkable, but they're also difficult to prove. Scientists can observe these moments. They can document them. They can analyze the behavior. Yet one question always remains: what was the animal actually thinking? That's why researchers rely on controlled experiments. Because unlike eyewitness accounts, experiments can be repeated, measured, verified. And among all the research on this subject, one study stands out. It involved the greater honey guide. For generations, honey hunters in Africa believed this small bird guided people to hidden beehives. Many dismissed it as folklore. Then scientists tested it. Hunters used a traditional call believed to attract honey guides. Researchers compared it with ordinary human sounds. The result was striking. When the traditional call was used, honey guides responded far more often. They approached people, led them through the landscape, and helped locate beehives at rates far beyond chance. The bird wasn't reacting randomly. It was recognizing a specific human signal and responding in a way that benefited both sides. This changed everything. For the first time, scientists had clear evidence that a wild, undomesticated animal could intentionally cooperate with humans. Not through training, not through dependence, but because cooperation improved survival. And once that was proven, the idea that other intelligent animals might recognize human abilities no longer seemed impossible. It became scientifically plausible. The experiment answered one question, but it raised an even bigger one. But the most surprising lesson isn't about birds, or dolphins, or elephants. It's about us. Because hidden in these encounters is a truth about humanity most people never consider, and that realization changes everything. After hearing all these stories, it's easy to reach one simple conclusion: that wild animals trust humans. But that's probably not true. Trust takes time. It's personal, fragile, and for most wild animals, humans remain one of the greatest threats they will ever face. So these encounters aren't really about trust. They're about something more powerful: recognition. Over millions of years, humans have become unlike any other species. No wolf can cut away a fishing net. No elephant can remove a hook from a dolphin's mouth. No whale can free another from heavy rope. But humans can. We've built tools, learned medicine, and reshaped the world in ways no other animal ever has. Ironically, those same abilities have made us both the planet's greatest destroyer, and at times, its greatest rescuer. Picture the elephant waiting quietly by the road, the dolphin holding still in the water, refusing to leave. In these moments, fear doesn't disappear. It's held back just long enough for something else to take its place. That's the contradiction at the heart of this story. The species responsible for so much harm is also the only one capable of solving certain problems nature cannot. Perhaps that's why these encounters feel so powerful. They remind us that our relationship with wildlife isn't simple. We are not just friend or enemy. To many animals, we are both, a danger to avoid and, in rare moments, a final chance for survival. Science doesn't claim animals understand human intentions, but it does show something remarkable. Some can adapt when it matters most. They weigh risk against survival, and sometimes against every instinct, they move toward the very creature they were born to fear. And that raises one final question. If we inspire both fear and hope, why would an animal place its life in the hands of its greatest threat? Let's return to where this story began. An injured elephant approaching a rescue center, a dolphin staying beside a diver until help arrived, a raven allowing a stranger to remove painful quills, a whale shark waiting as ropes were cut away. At first, these moments seem unbelievable, rare accidents scattered across nature. But the science tells a different story. These animals weren't defying evolution, they were following it, choosing the option with the greatest chance of survival. Sometimes that means running, sometimes hiding, and in the rarest moments, it means approaching the very species they were born to fear. Not because humans are trusted, not because animals believe we're kind, but because intelligence and experience can, in desperate situations, outweigh instinct. That's what makes these encounters so powerful. They reveal something essential. Fear isn't absolute. Survival depends on flexibility, the ability to adapt when every other option fails. Humans understand this better than any species. It's why we built tools, crossed oceans, and reshaped the planet. Those same abilities allow us to rescue, heal, and protect. But they also allow us to destroy. That is our contradiction. We are both the greatest threat, and sometimes the only hope. Perhaps that's why these stories resonate so deeply. To nature, we are neither heroes nor villains. We are both. To some animals, we bring harm. To others, in one critical moment, we offer survival. And that may be the real lesson. The relationship between humans and wildlife is not simple. It's shaped by fear, memory, intelligence, and opportunity. We are all driven by the same goal: to survive. Sometimes by avoiding each other, and sometimes by placing life in the hands of what we fear most, somewhere in the wild tonight. Another animal may face that same impossible choice. And maybe the greatest mystery isn't that animals sometimes seek our help, but that, despite everything, they sometimes still choose us.